As people.
All right.
Great, thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is CB Baga. I'm the attorney that founded and runs the legal clinic through the Volunteer Lawyers Network. My day job is at Maslin Law Firm, Public Interest and DEI Counsel. So I only do justice-related work in all aspects of my role. And I'm here today with 4 other fantastic clinic volunteers who have been helping a ton in the last couple of months. And I'll just kind of pass it off to each of them to introduce themselves. So Ashley, would you like to take a moment to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. My name is Ashley Catane. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I am a law student at Mitchell-Hamlin School of Law. I'm in my last year of law school, and I'm really excited to be here as a volunteer.
Ashley will be leading the main discussion in the main room and kind of going through an overview of the process and the forms, and has lived experience and has been volunteering for quite a while now and can answer a lot of your questions. Al, would you like to introduce?
My name's Al Gerhardstein. I'm a civil rights attorney relocated to Minnesota, and my pronouns are he, him, and I'm happy to be here.
Al is our out-of-state birth records expert at this point. So if anybody has an out-of-state birth record, make sure that you connect with us so that we can have you break out and talk with Al or myself. I should add an out-of-state birth record that you want to change. Robin?
Hi, everyone. My name is Robin Radke. My day job is I'm an attorney with Frederickson Byron Law Firm in the Twin Cities. My practice is in debt finance. I've been finding this over the past almost 2 months to be much more fun. I have some lived experience with the name change process for my child, as well as just the experience in the clinic, and look forward to speaking with you.
And Robin has been taking the lead on most of our minors and the various complications that come up with minors. So if you have a minor and you have a parent who is not supportive or another complication that is arising, make sure you let us know so we can let you chat with Robin a little bit one-on-one. And then Kinsey, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. My name is Kinsey. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a paralegal at Medea Law in Minneapolis. We primarily work on employment cases, but I have been helping out with the legal clinic for the last couple of months, and I'm really happy to be here.
All right, so Kinsey, I am gonna put you in a room with somebody to do an intake chat. Can you use the form, the physical form, not the electronic, so that we can see the info?
Yeah.
And then send it to me when you're done, and then we'll send in the correct attorney.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Anybody else wants to join a breakout room with an attorney, message me and I will set that up. In the main room here, we will continue with the general presentation. So opening the rooms and sending some folks in now. And with that, I'm going to hand the reins over to Ashley to lead the general conversation. Who probably have to make a host to be able to share.
Do you email? No, I think I do have. I have sharing capabilities. Did you email me the PowerPoint?
Oh, I can just do that from my screen.
Oh, perfect.
I added you to it.
Oh,
but it was like a drive link, so it might not have come through correctly.
Okay.
But at this point, let's just present from my screen.
Thank you.
Oh, my system is not set up to do this. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
All right, I'm just emailing it to you
Perfect, thank you.
as a PowerPoint instead. Apologies, everyone. Well, there we go. So I sent it to you, Ashley, so we can trade off at some point, but I was able to correct my settings. So this first slide here has 2 QR codes. You will see these many times throughout the presentation, and so you do not have to take them now, but if you know you need them now, there are 2 useful things here. One is a appointment request QR code to reach us, and the other goes to our overall step-by-step document. It is a little bit lengthy, but it is the place that we have started as our kind of general hive mind to share information as we learn more about the process. That link was also included in the materials when you signed up, so you already have that link, but the QR code on the right goes to that link. And with that, I am going to let Ashley take it over. We'll go through the process. We will touch briefly on some of the common complications. These are situations where you probably want to have a short conversation with one of us before you leave today. And we'll talk about the forms, the options for corrections, the court process, how your hearing will go, filing, and next steps after you're done with the process.
Okay. So the presentation, like CB said, this is going to we're going to talk about the name change applications, also how you can update your gender marker corrections if that's something that you are looking to do as well. The court process details, so what you can anticipate when you're going to court. We have some tips for you there as well. And then some of the complications that you might enter into, like CB said, for some of these, you're definitely going to want to step into a breakout room with one of the attorneys. And then some of the specifics for minors, if you have a criminal background, if you are doing the change through a marriage or divorce, and then also if you would like to do it, seek out the confidentiality as well. And then if you are using out-of-state documents, we do have an attorney who can help you with that because there are some specifics there as well. And then next steps that can occur after the court process, because there are several steps to get all of the change documents or get your name and gender marker changed in several different areas afterwards as well. So we like to start off by determining what your goals are. And so that can vary for different individuals. And so it's a good idea to think about what are your long-term goals with the name change as well as the gender marker. So things that we are going to consider are for whether or not it's for a minor, if you are going to actually want your gender marker changed on all of your documents, or if that's something that's important to you. The confidentiality, if that's something that would be necessary for you as well. We have a very nice resource, which you can access with the initial QR code, which is a generator. And so there you can actually go to the Minnesota court form website where you can fill out the forms themselves. But the generator is really nice because it just prompts you to put in all of your information and then it'll fill out the forms for you. So that is really nice. There are several different ways for you can file. You can e-file it, so that's electronically file it online. You can mail it to the courthouse, and you can also take it to the courthouse yourself. Something to consider is, depending upon the county that you're going to file it in, there is a fee associated with filing this paperwork. It's usually around $325. For some people, that could be a hardship. And so if that amount sounds like that could be a hardship for you, there is a fee waiver that is associated with that. And so that's something that we can discuss. And there's an application, however, that you have to fill out for that. And we're happy to help you look at that paperwork as well. So that's something that we can look at also. There's also a criminal background check that you're going to have to fill out as well. And there's a proposed order. So there's about 4 documents that we can look at together. You're also going to have to go through a hearing with the judge. And with the hearing there, you're going to have 2 witnesses. They both have to be adults that have known you for at least a year. The hearings oftentimes are going to be on Zoom. And the judge is usually going to, or the judge is in this hearing is just making sure that all of the standards for the statute have been met. An attorney is going to be recommended if you want to have the paperwork signed or want the confidentiality. If you want to have the paperwork done confidentially, or if you have a felony conviction, if the order is from another state, or if your birth records are done from another state, or if you are a minor that has an unsupportive parent. See if you have anything to add.
No, just that this is a big overview. This
Okay.
slide is going to come back a lot,
Okay.
but we're giving you kind of the overall lay of the land, and then we'll dive into each of these sections in a little more detail.
So that's kind of what we reviewed before. So,
sometimes we get folks that are not aware of what your options are. And so it can be helpful kind of upfront. And that's why we just have this slide in here. This is also in our materials. So if you've looked at the step-by-step document or you want to reference it later, you can reference this. Certainly policy can change. And we are, of course, concerned right now that some of these things could change in the future. But as of right now, this is the lay of the land. And so you can kind of think ahead of time, like what your goals are. You don't have to do gender marker in court unless certain situations apply to you. And so kind of taking a second to think about what gender markers you're wanting to get on things, if that's part of your process, can help assess what your best route is. And that's another thing that we can chat with you about in a breakout room to help you figure out what you think is the best choice for your situation.
so the birth records are, okay, CB, do you want to explain this?
Yeah, I can do this
Okay.
a little bit before
Thank you.
we go into the general process. So I
Okay.
mentioned a second ago that there's a lot of situations where folks do not have to get a court order to change the gender marker. The only place that is different is when we're talking about birth record. To do a birth record correction in Minnesota, there's a difference between amending it and getting a replacement birth record. This is the language. If you use the normal adult form, it's automatically in there. So it's not difficult for you. You can just fill out the normal form and check the boxes that you want to have your Minnesota birth record corrected and get a replacement. However, if you don't want to do that in court, I'm sort of the kind of person that if I don't have to do something in court, I don't want to. It also is public information at that point. And so if you do it in court and you don't go through the onerous extra steps to do it confidentially, then folks will be able to see that you had a court order, directing a change to your gender marker. And this process, doing it by amendment without going to court, would be a little more private. So there's pros and cons for everybody, and deciding what's best for you is a very personal choice. But here's a screenshot of what it looks like when it's amended. And that could be amended in a number of ways. We can talk about those options. And you can make an appointment with us if you want to discuss that further. And we'll go back to this after. But the big question up front when you're filling out your forms is like, do you need a court order addressing your birth record? And for most people who have a Minnesota birth record, the answer is you don't need to. That's just an option. If you have an out-of-state birth record, that's where we're going to want to chat a little bit more and figure out if you need a court order, and if so, can we get it here, or do we need to do something in the state that you were born in? So Ashley, back to you for the forms, and I will screen share so folks can see the forms and stuff instead of just going through this as we chat. So if the PowerPoint starts to blip out, that's what's going on. You are on mute.
Thank you. So for the name change application, so for eligibility, the applicant has to have fulfilled the guidelines for the Minnesota statute. So you have to have lived in Minnesota for 6 months, and you have to be a resident of that county that you're applying in. And you also have to have a proper purpose, which means that you're not intending to defraud or mislead anyone. So if you have intentions of moving to a new county, you just need to wait until you're going to be a resident of that county. And so, as I was stating before, the name change application, there is a very nice generator, which there is a link there, which we have as the link is showing there. That is a really nice generator that basically you can put all of your information into the generator and it'll populate it into where it needs to go within the forms. And it's very nice in case you might get the forms can be a little bit confusing. But of course, as we have stated before, if you want to go into one of the breakout rooms, we can have one of the attorneys kind of walk you through it as well. And so CB's also showing us how to access that on the website. And so it's showing that you would just go to the website. If you hit get started, start a new interview, you would review it. You can log in as a guest. You don't have to create an account. And then it's basically asking you all of the questions to make sure that you would qualify, which is how we talked about the residency requirements. And then it's your entering and your background information. So your address and whatnot. So all of the same information that needs to go into the form. And then it would populate this information into where it goes into the form appropriately. And you can see on the side where it has the interview outline, it's telling you all of the anticipated information that you're going to need. So it puts it in a really easy to digest manner. So your new name, the background information, your birth date, all of that information. If you're going to include a spouse on the application, if you're going to include your children on the application, minor children on the application, it has all of that there. So this is the same information that it is included in that on the actual court form. So now CB is showing the court forms, which is on the actual Minnesota Judicial Branch. So if you go to the website, there's the Get Forms page. And if you go to name change, and then there's an actual, they have adult and minor, and there's a packet that has all of the information nicely together. So it has the application, the criminal history release check, the proposed order, which are the documents that we discussed. And so it has it in a doc as well as a PDF. And so this is showing all of the actual form itself. The generator just asks you all these questions individually, and then it'll populate this information into the form for you. And so it just can make it a little bit easier for people instead of having to put it in the form itself.
And Robin made an important note in the chat. The generator that we were talking about isn't available for minors. And there is one of the, I guess, secret reasons for that. It's not something we have direct control over, but if you have a minor, we have a different form than the court does. We have added to it the birth record information that we talked about at the beginning with the special magic words to get it without the marker that it's amended. So that's why we want to make sure we connect with anyone that's doing a minor correction who wants to do a birth record. So just make sure you reach out to us to get our special form with the magic words for anyone like who has that situation. Ashley, do you want to scroll through the forms themselves really quick or move on?
I would like to scroll through the forms. I think it's nice
That
too,
sounds
just
good.
to see what they look like.
So if you are following along at home, feel free to go to the website and generate your forms right here and now so that you can get it done. I'm gonna go ahead and put this link in the chat so that everybody can receive it. If you are a paper person, you know, we can send you forms or you can get them off the court website. So here is the link for that. The generator was made with a previous version of the court form, so it does look a little different, but it covers the same content and will work just fine. So we still think it's easier to use that generator than it is to make like everybody fill it out by hand. All right, and we'll just quickly go through the forms here with you.
All right, so the form, as you see at the top, it has the county that you are going to be in, as well as the judicial district. It has information regarding whether or not you would need interpreters requested, and then the language. It's going to ask who in the matter of the application, and then ask, you'd put the dead name would go here. And then the undersigned. So then this is asking all of the information like your address, the county that you're in, name of the applicant at birth. This information is also the dead name, and then date of birth. Here is an applicant's spouse if you are married and you're entering information for a spouse. There's also NA if you're to check if you are not, if just entering an application for yourself. As well as you can enter an application on behalf of minor children as well.
You do have to disclose them. So there is a question here about whether the application includes these individuals. But you do have to disclose them even if you are not filing for a name change for them. But if you were, for example, changing the family name for everyone in the family, you can do that in one application.
And then here is where you are putting the name that you will be changing to. So it's saying to have the applicant's name changed from, so that would be your dead name to the name that you are changing to. And then it's saying to have the applicant's name changed on the birth record that's created or maintained by the Minnesota Department of Health to. And so that's the name that you want it to reflect. And then this is where you are putting the information to have your sex changed on the birth record from what the sex is currently reflected as to what you would like the sex to be reflected as. And then you also are checking whether or not you're going to have them adjust the former name and former sex on the Department of Health issued replacement birth record below as well. You're also entering the same information if you're having your spouse's information changed as well here, as well as your minor children as well. And then if you have a criminal history, this is where you would enter that information in as well. As stated before, it's important that if you do have to enter information here that you do work with an attorney in this situation. This number 9 asks if you own land, that you would have to describe that land here, land in Minnesota, that you have to give a description of the land here. And then also, if you are part of the witness protection program, you have to note that here, or if you are in a correctional facility, or if you're in the process of seeking a divorce and this is a part of a divorce proceeding. And then any other information, it goes in 13. CB, do you have an example of what that might be put in option 13?
I usually add stuff in other spots when I revise these forms, but if you're actually working off the form, it is a little easier if you're working off the court one. So anything that we might want to revise. That could be your out-of-state birth record if we want to get an order directed at Wisconsin. We have different strategies of how we try to make sure that that's going to be most likely to be issued. Folks sometimes have had prior name changes, and if your goal is to get an order correcting the birth record somewhere, including in Minnesota, and issue and register a replacement birth record, but the name on your birth record is different than the name that you are currently have on your legal documents and different than the name that you're going to have on your legal documents, then sometimes we need to flag for the agency like the correct birth record information. So really it's whatever's coming up for someone's unique situation that we might need to explain. I've had folks who are dual citizens in other countries and they've done a name change in one country but not another. Like I've had somebody who had a common law name change back in the day, which is like not a thing anymore, but just you've used your new name enough that the law like allowed them to recognize a change in the state that they lived in at the time. So all kinds of unique circumstances come up, and that's a place to explain to the court what you need or what's going on.
Okay.
But we can talk to you and help you revise them if any of that comes up for you. And then you're signing under oath. This does not have to be in front of a notary. You're just self-declaring that it's under oath.
So that is that form. And then this is the criminal history check release. And so this one is just a little bit more straightforward. You are putting your full name. This would be your dead name here. The date of birth, marking whether you're currently male, female, or the race, and then your signature here.
And obviously those are ridiculous questions, but
right.
Basically this is for purposes of a background check. And so you can put what's on your current legal identity documents or what you think would be most appropriate for purposes of like what law enforcement would have on record. They'll figure it out. Like, don't worry about it, fill it out in whatever way feels true to you, but this is it's the easiest and the most ridiculous form in a number of ways.
And it's handled differently by different counties. So it's important that when you're turning this in, some counties are going to, so they send this to the BCA, the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. And it's important that when you are submitting this with your other forms that you're mindful to check your mail, because they might have you do CB, you explain this a little bit better than I do, but no? Okay. They might have you, it's important to check your mail because they might want you to send this form directly to them, or they might send it on your behalf. But each county handles this a little bit differently.
You will need to file this form when you file, but then
yes.
Pay attention to what the court asks you to do. I'm getting mad about this right now because the courts are making it harder than they need to. So just make sure you read what they send you, and you can definitely contact us and we can give you a lawyer or a professional friend or something in between to help look at that with you, depending on what support would be helpful to get you through that process. The last form, we won't even go into too much detail on, but I'll show it to you because this is going to be almost identical to what you already did. But
yes,
Ashley,
yes, it is. Yes, it's all of the same information. So it's in the matter of, that would be your dead name for a name change to the name that you are going to be using. It still has your address. It has information about your spouse, your date of birth, the minor children information, to have your name changed to the name that you are going to be using. Still asking information about the name change on the birth records for the Department of Health. Also has information about if you're having your sex change, you'd put that there as well. And then if you want the birth records change with the Department of Health, you'll check that for your name change as well as the sex change also. So all of this information very much mirrors, but this is the actual order that the judge is going to be signing. So the previous document was the application. This document is the actual order that the judge is going to be signing. Something that I do like to note on this that I think is important is, so this document, So the judge actually has to sign it, and you can go, obviously, but you are filling out most of this information. CB, I think you scroll back up just a little bit, because technically I think you can stop. It is so ordered. So I know that technically you stop or above, and that you said that you like to fill out as much as possible, except for, of course, the signature, because of the fact that the judge can potentially put in the wrong information. And that did happen when I changed my son's name. And the judge wrote his middle name wrong, and then I had to reach back out and have them fill out their information.
Yeah.
So
I'm so glad to have a real story of that happening.
It is
So
that, so I did
tell people
not.
this all the time. The court
Yes.
will tell you to stop at the application is granted and let the judge fill out the bottom. The lawyers never let the judge write it. We write what we want the judge to order. If they want to do extra work to write it differently than you did, make them do extra work. We wanted them to do exactly what you want. So I fill it all out. You obviously do not sign it for the judge, but I fill out all of the information exactly the way I want it to be granted.
And I think that's excellent advice, because that happened to me and the judge misspelled his name, and that was already his current legal name too. So that was a nightmare. So I had to have them rewrite it. And so I think that's excellent advice. I agree that you should fill out as much as possible, except for, of course, the signature portion as well.
Yeah. So that's the forms. They're not that complicated, except they do take a minute. So it is nice to use that generator, which will fill them out for you. And then you just need to spin through and make sure that it all looks good. But any questions so far, and feel free to drop them in the chat if you're not comfortable being on the recording. All right, so we have already talked about most things, but I'm just going to quickly touch on some context for birth record corrections on gender markers before we move on to the next step. So for gender marker corrections in Minnesota, we can get an order addressing the correction of any vital record as long as it's incomplete, inaccurate, or false. However, there are judges that interpret that statute to mean at the time it was made. And it is not a coincidence that more of those judges are in outstate Minnesota. There's one judge in Hennepin County that won't grant them for our people. If you have a Minnesota birth record, or a birth record from a state that doesn't correct birth records, or a birth record from a state that lets you do it administratively, that does not matter, because you'll be able to do what you need anyway. And having the judge deny this or not even doing it in court won't matter. However, if you have a birth record in a state that requires a court order to correct it, or if it's really important to you to have the new birth record not say that it was amended, then we need that court order, and we should talk about how to make sure that you get that. For most judges, you just use an ACT letter, an ACT letter. It's this is the text of the letter. We can send you that letter. It just says you have a doctor-patient relationship and you've had appropriate clinical treatment for transition. There's no details. We don't want to tell the court details. Most judges who grant these just defer to your doctor, and they won't get into too many details or anything like that. They just need to be able to find that the birth record is incomplete, inaccurate, or false, whatever that means to you. So that is the additional thing that you should plan to get. You do not need to file it. You just need to have it by the hearing. So most judges will tell you like, hey, will you email in whatever you need or something like that. So we'll talk about the details of the hearing a little bit more, but here is the thing for if you want or need a court order addressing gender marker. What we've basically been telling folks, if it's really important to you to get this order, we don't have a ton of attorneys available. And so there has been somewhat of a wait. In order to not have a wait, I would recommend proceeding to file, fill out the forms as they exist, get your ACT letter. If the judge seems skeptical in the hearing, you can ask them to return and have a hearing and have a chance to get an attorney. Contact us, and then we can step in later if it's needed, rather than worry about waiting for one of us to become available, because we do have some concerns about this policy. There is a current case, and I don't want anyone to be too nervous about this, but there is a current case at the Court of Appeals. It is from a trans person that wants to do the right thing for the community. So it's not a hostile situation, but they did get a panel of judges that we know to be hostile to this. And we fully expect an order coming down in the coming weeks that will make this temporarily hard to do. We have an amazing Supreme Court here in Minnesota. They did it in, like, if you need a bright shining light in the legal world, the Cooper arguments for the USA powerlifting case a few weeks ago were just lovely to listen to. They're online. You can watch if you are interested in that kind of thing. They'll fix it, I'm quite sure, but it may take us a minute. So you might see a bad headline soon about correcting Minnesota birth records. You might see a lot of fear. It's temporary, but we are recommending folks move quickly to correct their Minnesota gender markers on birth records, or just be prepared to wait a beat, maybe a year, while we fix it at the Supreme Court. So, a little aside about gender marker stuff. Questions about that? So I got a question about changing stuff on insurance. So yes, after you correct stuff on, in court, after you get your court order addressing your gender marker, you'll then need to go and change your name everywhere else. For health insurance specifically, we have a protective statute here in Minnesota. The Trans Refuge statute says that if Medicare, Medicaid, or some other national program doesn't cover gender affirming care, that the private insurer in Minnesota has to step in and cover it. So there's sort of this gap filler that's happening for insurance coverage. Now, that wouldn't necessarily protect it in all situations. If there's other issues with national policy that could still implicate gender affirming care. And because of that, I have heard that doctors are now suggesting that one way to preserve your access to specifically HRT, but probably other things as well, would be to appear as cis as possible on your records, which might mean getting that new birth record, making sure that your medical information reflects that you are the gender for the treatment that you need, and then you are treated the same way a cis person would if their hormone levels were off. I don't know how likely that is to impact Minnesotans, because since we do have that trans refuge statute, but that is advice that I am starting to hear out there. And so when you're thinking about getting your records in order, getting them corrected so that they reflect a binary sex designation for the treatment that you need to receive is something that I'm hearing to be recommended right now. I think that's the main thing. If you are worried about places correcting your gender marker, that is a reason why having an order correcting your gender marker may be helpful to you. I have not seen this come up too much, but as I mentioned, I don't like to do things in court that I don't have to, but I have trans lawyer friends that are like, why wouldn't you want a court order declaring your new gender marker should be blank, or your new sex designation, or whatever the magic words need to be. And so that is a reason why someone might choose to do this in court, even though you don't have to. Thanks for bringing that up. That was a good little sidebar. Ashley, back to you. Oh yeah, so what could happen. We are, certainly all preparing for the likelihood that federal policy will change. Generally, federal policy doesn't change quickly, but in red states, what's happening is that they're making policies that say like they'll only issue identification that matches your birth record. If I had to make up what could happen federally, I guess my best guess would be that they're going to start doing what red states could do. Now we've won lawsuits about some of this stuff already. Some of them I've worked on, and they were many years ago, and we got an order that the Department of State has to issue an X passport and stuff like that. So like, will that stuff go away? Who knows? It'll be fought certainly when it starts to happen, but there's also random acts of chaos and violence, like disabling links on websites to just make things inaccessible, even if they technically are still legally supposed to happen. Certainly, if all of the employees in a particular agency are turning over, like there's going to be delays. Certainly, there could be issues with getting what's needed. So all that is to say, we are not sure what's going to happen. It's anybody's guess. It's all speculative, but the safest thing to do is evergreen advice to just get your stuff in order, and doing it in, the time that we know it won't change is probably a good idea. What is safest for each person is going to be different. So, thinking through what you feel safest about and what combination of gender markers is going to keep you safest. For example, in a police stop situation, if you're going through TSA, if you are incarcerated, if you are, thinking through what's right for each person is going to be different. I have an X on my stuff, and I have no intention of changing it. I think there are people for whom that is not the right choice. I know there are lots of people out there saying, oh, get rid of your X because it's going to out you as trans. And I'm not that person. I have no intention of getting rid of my X, but what is safest for each person is going to be different. And so just be thoughtful about like what you want and what's best for you. And we can chat with you about that if that would be helpful. And you can make an appointment here.
Okay, filing with the court. Okay, so there are, as we stated before, there's 3 processes that you can do to file your paperwork. Once you've completed it with the court, you can do the e-filing process. You can also file directly and take your papers to the courthouse and file them, or you can mail them to the courthouse. So e-filing, so the PDFs can be saved, and you can file a case with the district court. So CB is going to show us that with a screen share. So please note that some of the information when you're doing filing and e-filing is meant for attorneys. So some of the things you're going to be leaving just blank or putting NA in those spots. So we'll see that in just a moment. So you will file a case with the district court, and it says e-file and serve. And so CB is going in.
I'm going to log in with my Muggle account that I used when I was doing my own name change. So this is what it'll look like. It's like any website where you have to make like an account and log in. So if you're pretty comfortable on a computer, this is a good option. You don't have to go to the courthouse. A lot easier for some people than driving in. However, it can be a little confusing. You do need to be able to save your forms as separate PDFs and upload them. So if you work on a computer and with documents all the time, it's probably pretty accessible, but otherwise, I'll just show you the basics that it looks like. You're starting a new case. You can kind of just approach these intuitively. And if you're confused, just put it NA. So like the location, oh, looks, it's counties. So you can just like find the county that applies to you, the county courthouse. The category, it's civil. And the case type, it is a name change. So if you start typing name, change of name will come up. Yeah, so not not the most confusing situation, but save it and then move on to the next. You are the petitioner. And that's it. When you get confused, so this is where you're going to start to upload documents. So the first one is like your application that we looked at. If you start typing application, you could do application, but application for name change is an option. This is where there's little question marks. So if you're not sure, you can just read it and it will tell you what's up. Client reference number. Yeah, this is for lawyers. So like internal records, it doesn't matter. You can just write whatever you want. It is public unless you specifically like go through the process to make it not public, unfortunately. And then you would upload the document from your computer here. The only other thing I flag is you can order the certified copies of the order when you file. If you do the fee waiver, they are free, and I recommend getting like 10. If you do not do the fee waiver, they're $14 each, so you probably can't get 10, but get like at least a few. I got 7 for myself. I would say like no less than 3. You can go back to the courthouse and get them later if you need more, but you're going to send one to each place that you're correcting your name, and they may send it back. They may take the staple out, which technically kind of gets in the way. These are the certified copies that have a special court stamp on them, so they are your golden ticket. That is e-filing. Any questions about e-filing? Otherwise, I'll pass it back to Ashley. Going to the courthouse you just go to the courthouse, walk up, hand them your papers. Like they'll help you through if there's anything else that they need. All right.
So for the pre-hearing, the applicants, as we discussed before, you do need 2 adult witnesses to help establish identity. And so according to the statute, the witnesses have to have known the applicant, so you for at least a year. They may be relatives. If the applicant is married, so if you are married, your partner has to be one of the witnesses. If it's a minor, one applicant has to be the parent, or one applicant parent needs 2 witnesses.
This I've learned is not always true. So
okay,
I have to revise this, but if you have 2 parents apply together, they might not require you to have 2 witnesses, but I've heard that some courts do. So.
Okay. And then you should collect some supplemental documents. So that's whatever the judge tells you that you're going to need. And so that is something that you will look out in the mail for as well. And so if you've gone through bankruptcy, they might require you to bring certified copies of that order. They might ask you to also bring a photo ID for or your birth records, anything related to prior name changes. You might also have to bring for proof of residency, your ACT letter from your physician. Anything else, CB, that you have seen them request outside of what's here?
I have seen I've seen it come up when there's other complications.
Okay.
But it's really up to the judge, because the judge's job is to figure out if the statute has been met. And so if they ask you for something that you don't have, you can usually replace it with something else. So like I had a client that didn't have a birth record available easily, and she just said, can I just use my marriage license showing my name change, my previous name change? And the court was like, yeah, that's fine. So they're usually not sticklers, because these are not statutory requirements. These are what they need as evidence to show the statute is met. So it's a little less direct. If they ask you for something you don't have, see if there's just a different way you could show that thing. Oh, and all of these have been on Zoom, to my knowledge, since the pandemic hit. I've not heard of one being scheduled in person at all. So you should expect it'll be on Zoom. You can expect it will probably have other people present. And they usually take like 5 to 10 minutes. So it's really short, although others might go ahead of you. So for me, they just said, will you send in photos or scans of these documents in advance of the hearing? And so they had my witnesses send a photo of their ID as well. Every judge is different, but they will tell you what they need.
So for the hearing, the judge is going to ask the applicant to use some questions to make sure that they have all of the information that is required by the statute. And so they usually are going to ask the witnesses whether they've known you for at least a year. They're going to ask the applicant if they've answered all the questions on the application truthfully and whether you're changing your name in good faith. And then they will grant the name change so long as you are not intending to mislead or defraud anyone. And as long as nothing in the statute is barring the name change. And then after the hearing, you are going to want to, as CB said, obtain multiple certified copies of the court order, ideally as many as possible, up to 10 if you can, if you are qualified for the fee waiver, but at least 3 if you are purchasing them yourself. And then applicants should update your social security card as soon as possible. And then after that, you're going to want to update your Minnesota ID as well as any other tax or financial information. And then applicants are required to update their Minnesota driver's license or ID within 30 days. So that's why you want to get to your social security card as soon as possible, because then the Minnesota driver's license is going to use that as a reference. They were recommending that corrections and the Minnesota birth records be evaluated during these times because you want to speak a little bit more to this, I guess, CB?
Sure. Yeah, we already talked about this, but we are expecting a bad order. It's probably going to happen. It's probably going to happen soon. So if you would like to have your birth record corrected, either move now, like today, like go online and do this now, or there are other options. So like one way to do this would be name changes aren't going to go away. And like I said, we are going to get back the right to correct your birth record in Minnesota. It just might be a minute. So what some folks are doing, it's like $66 to get a correction on your Minnesota birth record. It's $40 to file the application for the amendment, and it is $26 to get a new certified birth record. We have funds available from P Fund. I don't know yet how they're going to get into your pocket, but the folks have committed dollars to help with this. So that should hopefully not be a barrier. You could go tomorrow and correct your Minnesota birth record, get the correct gender marker on there, and then do your name change later. They process the Minnesota birth record corrections in a week most of the time. So one of the ways, if you have a Minnesota birth record, just get it done and then you have it and you don't have to worry. Or if you are the kind of person that is not like me, I don't use my birth record that much. I only ever had to use it actually for my name change hearing. I use my passport to prove my citizenship and stuff. If that's you, maybe you don't need to do this right now because the federal documents are the priority. You could go and correct your gender marker on Social Security and passport immediately. You could do it before you even do your name change. And yes, you'll have to pay to get a new passport again when you do the name change, but $130 to amend your passport next year sometime, knowing that the name isn't going to be a problem, because there's no way that like they'll change like names. That's not a big issue. $130 is not that much money to protect yourself against the things changing. So, Robin, do you have thoughts on this?
I do. I was just gonna, as a reminder, I absolutely agree to explore getting the Minnesota birth record updated through the administrative process quickly. But just as a reminder, you still need the ACT letter to do that, the physician letter. So from a treating physician, honestly, I think any physician at this point providing anything remote to gender affirming care is going to know exactly what you're needing. And hopefully be a very smooth process, but you would need that original letter to include with your application to the Minnesota Department of Health.
Great point. Yes. And if that is a barrier, make an appointment with us. There's a variance process that we can use. It is a little more onerous than just getting the letter. So if you have a physician or could get one appointment with somebody that does gender affirming care, a lot of times they can take one look at your file and be like, yep, looks good. A lot of times they'll upload it to your patient portal if you have an ongoing provider. So.
And they are still processing those, it looks like, pretty quickly, but it's getting more backed up. It's available on the website, looks like, as of Tuesday. They were processing, from about a week before. It used to be 3 or 4 days. Now it's, a week and a half. And I imagine that's going to only grow as we get closer to mid-January.
Mm-hmm. So that's kind of what we're looking at for the landscape. It affects everyone differently. The advice is different in different states. Like if you're in a red state, a lot of people are like, you need to get your passport in the correct gender marker now so that you have something with the right gender marker. But yet I'm hearing people in other states saying, oh, it's a danger to not have your documents match. Well, okay, that can't both be the advice. I don't think there is one size fits all advice. What is right for you is going to be different than what is right for somebody else. And so happy to talk through anyone's individual situation, the horror stories that we've heard, where issues come up. One that I've heard is folks who have an X on your birth record and then move to a red state that requires a binary marker that matches your birth record. Now that X is a problem for that person. I have no intention of moving to a red state, so I'm not worried about an X. People that are, concerned about being flagged as trans versus somebody who has an X because they might present very differently in different moments. And it is safer for them to have an X than it is for, to be outed as a binary marker that's then going to look wrong at times. So there's just a lot to consider, but it's up to you what is best for you. But getting the right gender markers on stuff for what is best for you is a good goal right now. All right. Any questions about that? Otherwise, I will pass it back to Ashley to talk about next steps. Common complications. We won't actually go through this. I'm going to flag them for you. Come and talk with us if any of these apply. Minors, we can talk about. Robin, anything you want to flag for everybody about minors?
I guess just thinking through recently, sometimes we have some overlap with where the minor has an out-of-state birth record. Certainly one that has come up for me a couple of times is what to do if you have a non-supportive parent, where one parent is on board. There's a process, but there's a process. So we can talk through that. I mean, that's kind of the biggest one. There may be different considerations that parents want to think through with respect to confidentiality, with respect to the replacement versus the amendment on the birth record. Again, balancing, getting everything in the ideal shape versus getting things taken care of with expediency, and, kind of more certainty. I think those are kind of the big ones. I don't know, CB, if there's things that I'm missing.
I don't think so. Those are the big ones that come up. I guess I'll flag a couple of little things. So the criminal history check applies if the minor is 10 years old or older. I sometimes adjust the ACT letter to say age appropriate clinical treatment instead of just appropriate clinical treatment. I don't want judges' brains going places they shouldn't. if the minor has a complication, so if there's a parent that is not in the picture at all, and they have any form of legal rights or recognition, probably that's a situation where you're going to need to take those extra steps, like Robin said, and we can talk through that. But that does come up. The final thing that I'll note on minors is we would like to connect with folks that are proceeding with minors, so that who want to do the birth record, because we want to get you the correct form with the language. If anyone wants to make that on your own, what I've done is I've copy and pasted the parts from the adult form into the minor forms. So you can look at the adult form, grab the Word document and move that over yourself. You can put it under other at the end of the minor form, and put it in the proposed order as well. So you'd have to copy those over, but we've already done that, and we provide that to folks. So technically writing legal documents is practicing law. And so we do want to connect with people directly if they want our form, but you can, pass that around, and you can physically do it yourself if you want to for yourself.
Yeah. And then I think the last point, CB, is and this is, I guess, with respect to minors and adults, is, if you opt to go, directly through the administrative process to do a gender marker change, that doesn't prevent you from getting one through a court order later. Certainly that part takes longer. So for expediency, it may be, depending on everybody's individual situation, certainly the administrative process is much quicker. But at a later date, if you opt for confidentiality reasons, or you just want a birth record that matches who that person is, without the extra, legends or language, you can certainly pursue the court process as well.
Excellent point. Thank you. And I have a better screenshot of what that looks like, so we can look at those in a moment. Criminal history, generally not a barrier at all, unless it is a felony. When we have a felony conviction that includes a plea in a criminal history, then we have an extra step that we have to go through. And we have good lawyer support for that one. So let us make sure folks talk to us. If it is not a felony, then all you have to do is disclose it when you apply for your name change. And then after the court process, the court will tell you this too, it's written right on the order, but you have to report it to the BCA. And so it's just basically like a let them update their records kind of situation. While someone is incarcerated, there is a different form and some other barriers. We have not been successful at helping folks in our brief services clinics while they're incarcerated. We would recommend somebody have an attorney who can actually help them navigate that. So we could probably help connect you to some options for folks that could help. But unfortunately, our clinic is only brief services. We are someone's client for the duration of the appointment. And so we have not been able to do that successfully for people who are incarcerated. For marriage and divorce, some counties will allow you to change your full name, first, middle, and last, through the marriage license process or the divorce petition. That is an alternative, and you wouldn't have to do the application here. However, now that's your name change document for the rest of your life. So you can decide if you actually want to do that or not. For example, I did take my spouse's last name as a middle name, but I did it through the regular name change process so that I have a regular name change order to use everywhere, and I don't have to use any of the marriage documents as everywhere I need to use my name change. So confidentiality is a burden. We can help, but it requires a motion process. All right. After court, back to you, Ashley.
Okay, after court. So after court, you are going to have to update many documents. So the documents that you must update are the Social Security card, which As we discussed before, you want to update that immediately. And then the Minnesota driver's license or ID, that is going to be, must be updated within 30 days. You may update the birth certificate, your passport, the selective service records, and then some of the other personal documents that we discussed. And then CB kind of went over some of the why it might be important to consider what documents are important for you to update in today's world. We talked about social security cards and the gender marker attestation, and that the social security office does not require the ACT. Sorry, that they do not require the ACT and the selective service.
Quick note, correcting your social security info is free. So it just requires an appointment as of early November. So you can make an appointment to go in and fill out the form and tell them to fix your gender marker. You need no other support for that. They will tell you what documents they need to like prove your identity to them. But that one is not too difficult, and kind of no reason not to just do it because it's free. We are stuck to binary options for that. There is not a gender marker on your social security card, but it is in their system. Selective service is based on sex assigned at birth. That doesn't change when you have a court order or anything else. Unfortunately, it matters if for FAFSA stuff.
And then the state IDs, so you will update your state ID, like we said, within 30 days. And so the Minnesota state IDs, those are self-selected. There's no documentation that's required, and you can select the MF or X marker. There's no reason to think the X marker is going to go away in Minnesota at this time. However, as previously discussed a little bit, the red states, there are passing policies that are basically where it varies in the red states. And so there's some risk that if you move to a red state, you might be denied access to those documents if you have X as a marker on your documents there. Passports, so updating your name on the passports requires a certified copy of your court order. As of right now, the gender markers on your passports are self-selected, so you can do the MF or the X, and it's unclear at this time if that is going to change. So the best way to protect yourself for that policy is to go ahead and get that updated right now. There could be, you might want to be mindful of the fact of with international travel, what that means for you to have the X selected on your passport, however. And there's several ways or three ways to correct your name change on your birth record. So you can get the court order and you can submit the ACT letter from your physician, or you can also petition the Department of Health with the variance by requesting an X gender marker or to remove the gender marker entirely. This can be done on the Vital Records website, which is the link is here. And then this is just an example of the amended birth record, CB.
And yeah, this is a better look at what that looks like. This is if it's amended, if it's not done with the magic words. And if it has the magic words, I don't have a great example of that, but it just says any amendment made prior is not noted on the record. So it's not like it says nothing, but it's less. So one more time, the old one, if you just get an amended birth record, and that includes the administrative process. But like Robin noted, you can go get that ACT letter, do the administrative process that way, and then you could go back and get this one, when you go to court later. But this would be a way to start right away. And it doesn't say the gender marker specifically was corrected. It says data items other than the name or date of birth. So you're not directly outed, but it will say the names that were changed and under the date on which they were changed. Oh, we don't need to go through the variance procedure. Here's some other places to consider updating your stuff. Oh, yep. Is there a question or a comment? Okay, I thought I heard something, but so for your correcting everything else, this is going to take some time. Take it one step at a time. Focus on correcting stuff where it's going to impact you. Like think a few weeks ahead. For me, it was prescriptions. Like I have to have my ID checked to pick up my prescriptions. And so I kept my passport in my dead name for a while until I could correct my health insurance, my provider, get my prescription in the new name. Great. Now I can do all of this. Oh, thank you, Robin. So Robin wanted to clarify that the redacted information that we had shown on that amended birth record here, that redacted information is the date. It does not disclose what the dead name was or anything like that. It's just the date that it was changed. Thank you, Robin. Zan, question from you.
Up, you're on mute, Zan.
Yeah. I just figured it out. This is a little bit of an aside, but I have difficulty scanning that QR code, and I think I need to make an appointment. That's why I'm looking pretty confused.
Sure, no problem. Would you like to have an appointment right now?
Yeah.
All right. Robin, are you?
However, I don't think I have the information to follow all the steps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No problem.
But
and Robin, can I have you two step into a room with Zan and y'all can kind of go through what's needed? Does that work? Ashley and I have another appointment at 1. So if you two can field this one, that'd be great. Okay, Zan, I'm gonna put you in a breakout room then with Robin.
Oh, thank you. And yeah, I'm not tech savvy at all.
No problem.
Thank you.
I'll take care of it. So
perfect.
Thank you for letting us know what you need.
Yeah.
And Robin, I will let them do intake here and then I'll send you in a few minutes.
Okay, thanks.
Because then you can. Great. So updating your stuff everywhere else. This is one of those things that just takes time and you won't be able to do it all in a day or two. So take it one step at a time. Any specific questions about this before we move on? Out-of-state documents, we've already mentioned this a few times, but just talk to us. The steps that I use to figure this out, if you're ever wanting to DIY it, there's a great website, the transequality.org ID Doc Center has every state. And I can just show you what that looks like when we click that. It's a pretty good guide. You scroll down and you choose what state has your birth record. Let's go to Minnesota just because this one's easy. It has a good summary. And here's the info about amending the birth record here and what you need. And you would be able to tell if you had a Minnesota birth record and lived in another state that you would not need to go to court. You could use this with the ACT letter for your gender marker and that just any court order for the name change. So we have it better in Minnesota than some folks, but if you were to go to a different state, you can see pretty quickly if you need to have a court order or not. If you have to have a court order, that's when we need to get a lawyer in there to help you. We already talked about this. There's a lot of documents to update. Take it one step at a time. Focus on the ones that will impact your life the most and that you have stuff coming up for federal documents and Minnesota birth records. Getting those done ASAP is one way to, protect yourself against future policy changes. And we'll stick around for some Q&A and we can have individual appointments. All right, I'm going to send Robin in to your appointment. All right, for those that are with us, what questions do you have? Or I guess, Ashley, you're the only remaining volunteer in the room, but if others have insights that you want to share, also a great time to share thoughts, things we missed, or other stuff like that. Well, this is a lot. I will share, let's see here. I heard that the link wasn't working great. So let me grab that link. This step-by-step name change resource, I'm going to drop it in the chat. This came out in when you signed up to be here. So this is the document that link goes to. And there is a link to itself right on it, because that way, when we print it out and give it to people, they can access the electronic one. We update this with our insights as we learn. So this is our way right now of sharing all of the latest info. And I'll probably add, if it's okay with Sean, the link to this presentation in our handy links section, because we have other discussions on here. So if folks prefer the video, we have a 10-minute overview video of the process. And then we have a more detailed one that I think is, it's okay. But this one is probably better and more up to date. The link to our appointments with us is also on here. This contains most of what we said today, so you can come back and look at it if you have specific questions. To make an appointment with us, it's just a Google form requesting that appointment. So here it is. It includes a link back to the step-by-step document as well, because that's timely. There's really very little required information. You tell us how to contact you, and we'll get you an appointment with a lawyer or whatever else you need. We also have volunteers that are non-lawyers, as you have seen today, who could help you with various steps that come up. Great. So quick question came in a minute ago about getting the Social Security stuff corrected. You do not have to order a card. They just will send you one. You will need to fill out an application and make an appointment. So I will screen share and kind of show what that looks like. We don't put live links to these because the links change a lot. And so we've found in the past, when we tried to put live links in the step-by-step document, they ended up being broken too often. But I just generally Google it, like Social Security correct gender marker was what apparently I've Googled a lot in the past. But that'll pull up kind of the various information more quickly. This is the application. They'll kind of help you figure out what you need. Corrected card, US born citizen, for example. And it'll kind of walk you through it. The application is pretty simple. You just need to have, here it is. So you'll fill in the name on your current legal identity documents, Social Security number, you know, all of this basic stuff that they would have at the government level. It's a one-pager. So you'll fill that out, and you will need to, you won't write it, but you'll need to bring your evidence with you to show the corrections. So this is where is it? It's not helpful. Okay. So you'll make an appointment. Like so, put in a Duluth zip code. Yes, that's my childhood zip code. That's why I have that at my fingertips. Here we've got the address, right? You can call if you need to. Not too complicated. So it will not have the gender marker on it. You just need to tell them what. So like for name change, you'll use your court order of the name change, or whatever else you did to change your name if you didn't do the court order process that we talked about today. And then you'll need to prove your identity. It's free, so you don't have to like order it per se, but if you just, check the correct box for the gender marker that you want on there, and go through the process. All right. Ashley, what else do you have on your mind? Anything that we didn't touch on that we should?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, thanks for being here today, folks. I'll stick around and be available for questions if anything else occurs to you. Otherwise, we can also hop in a breakout room if anybody wants to have a one-on-one appointment right now. We'll be doing this more. I've got like 3 or 4 more of these scheduled in the next few weeks, and we're happy to do them as often as folks find helpful. So if you know of anybody that wants a one-on-one appointment, we can schedule that. But we're also happy to have more events.
Awesome, CB. Just wanted to say thank you so much to all of y'all for sharing all of your knowledge and wisdom with us. And I'll just also chime in. You can definitely, once I get this link, add that to the step-by-step guide, if that's helpful for y'all. And yeah, folks can reach out to us at Trans Northland as well, and we're happy to connect. If you lose the links or whatever it is, we'll get you connected with these fine folks. So I'm going to end the recording now. Thanks for all of you joining us.